famous Royal Park setting of Monza, just north of Milan, a location where so much Grand Prix history has been made, and more could be written in the next couple of hours. It's round 15 of the Formula One World Championship, the Italian Grand Prix. Commentators Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. Well, even before the stewards controversially decided to move Fernando Alonso back 5 places on the grid for getting in the way of Felipe Massa as they saw it in qualifying yesterday, and then Alonso saying this morning in a press conference, and again to our own Martin Brundle on the grid, that he doesn't consider Formula One to be a sport anymore. This has been, in any case, a weekend full of dramas. We haven't had a paddock buzzing like this for years and years. There is the paddock, top left of your screens, the trucks backed up against the garages, all the beautiful people, all kinds of people you never see the rest of the year seem to drift into Monza. They all seem to get passes, they all wear beautiful Italian clothes and hang around, but everybody who lives and breathes Formula One is absolutely buzzing here this weekend, particularly after Alonso said what he said. But in any case, the backdrop for today's race, the ongoing championship battle between Alonso and Michael Schumacher for the World Championship. Just 4 races to go, 12 points the difference, and 8 grid slots separating them. Schumacher at the front there, Alonso down in 10th place on the grid. How many of those can he make up here this afternoon? I'll tell you one thing, it's an extremely angry Fernando Alonso sitting in that cockpit. He was not terribly pleased in Hungary when he was given a penalty, if you remember, for his yellow flag infringement. And he drove possibly one of the best races of his life until he retired in Budapest. Here, he's even more fired up. But overshadowing even that, as we've heard, is the impending announcement after the race by Michael Schumacher himself about his future. Is the greatest driver in the history of the sport, statistically at least, just 90 minutes away from announcing his retirement. Who knows? We will find out soon enough. And then more drama still in qualifying yesterday. The man that Ferrari intend to take over from Schumacher, Kimi Räikkönen. He's had a mixed season, but here in front of the Tifosi, he made the clearest possible statement. I am the natural successor, he told them, to Schumacher, and he did so by snatching pole position by 2/1000ths of a second. Over a 3.5-mile lap, that's 14 centimetres, or the length of a CD case. That's how close it is between these two. Heidfeld, best qualifying of the season for BMW there in 3rd place. Massa felt he could have had pole, and that's why Alonso was penalised. Button, great job in qualifying. Kubica's well up there as well. The 2 Renaults you can see there on row 5. Fisichella, we believe, is on a completely different strategy from the others, running very, very long. David Coulthard outside the top 10 in 14th place. Red Bull struggling a bit here with straight line speed. And down the back you can see Mark Webber in the Williams Cosworth. They brought a lot of new parts on the car here this weekend. Williams pushing very, very hard, putting out all kinds of positive messages, but qualifying behind a Midland is certainly not one of the messages they wanted to put out. And incidentally, in amongst all the other things that have been going on this weekend, Midland announced at 10:30 this morning they've sold the team. Alex Schneider is no longer in Formula One, and a Dutch company has taken over, a consortium of businessmen. The Spiker car company, specialist sports cars, have taken over. But as a piece of news management, this is the wrong day to announce your acquisition of a Formula One team, particularly when it's been going on for 3 or 4 months, because it's so drowned out by everything else that's happening. That was a stunning grid walk with so much drama and controversy, and you feel it down there, grid. We all feel it in the paddock here this weekend. It's electric, isn't it? Well,
it makes for an interesting day's sport, doesn't it? Controversy, close racing, everything at stake. And I'm really looking forward to the afternoon. I was quite impressed with Spiker. They managed to get all the team shirts changed, and they were certainly quite well organised for it. So welcome to another new company in Formula One. It's always good to see that coming along. But down to the race. 10 different types of Michelin tyres out there. But we've seen a few punctures, haven't we, through free practice and qualifying even. And the teams are always trying to lower the pressure of their tyres. They need the mechanical grip because they don't have the aerodynamic grip with the skinny wings on. And the tyre companies are always pushing them to raise the pressures because the tyres are under such load at over 220 miles an hour. Even with the small wings, there's still quite a lot of downforce at those high speeds. So that's going to be a factor. Will we see any punctures, any tyre delaminations? I think Heidfeld in 3rd place got quite a soft tyre. He should be electric off the grid, though. And he may well be giving Michael Schumacher a hard time. Even Räikkönen down there into turn 1. And we'll see how far the Renaults can get. The problem is here, so often you see cars losing their noses and getting rear wing damage as they concertina up down in that very tight first corner.
Yeah, it's going to be electric, the run down to turn 1, building up to well over 100 miles an hour before they hit the brakes to go into that first chicane, which is taken in racing speeds at 60 miles an hour. This is the biggest braking zone on the circuit. Already in the GP2 races, we've seen plenty of people going straight on there at the chicane. There are bumps in the middle of the chicane though, so there's no great advantage to it. But clearly, if you do happen to pass a car by cutting the chicane, you have to let them back through again. And that's something we all need to keep an eye out for. 53 laps then of this historic Monza circuit, built in the Royal Park here at Monza, just about half an hour's drive from the centre of Milan, one of the industrial powerhouses of northern Italy. 11 corners on this racetrack, but the drivers only actually used the brakes 6 times, so you can imagine there's some pretty quick corners here as well. And interestingly, the top speed's down this year by about 8 miles an hour compared to the V10s last year. We thought that the cars would be significantly slower here this year with less horsepower, the move from V10 to 2.5 litre V8, but it hasn't really worked out that way. Kimi Raikkonen's pole time just 0.6 of a second slower than Montoya's pole time last year in a V10 powered Formula 1 car. They hit 220 miles an hour on the main straight. They hit over 200 on 3 separate occasions around this lap. This is one of the best corners here, Ascari. And you can already hear and feel we have a capacity crowd here in Monza. They're a knowledgeable crowd. They love their motorsport. The great majority of them, obviously, are Ferrari fans. And we are in for quite a spectacle. Just look at that crowd.
It's amazing when you're going down there at a couple of 100 miles an hour in a Formula 1 car. It looks like you're going into a dead end at Parabolica. You can't see the corner, and you can see the grandstands and the barriers all lined up, and all you can see directly ahead of you is a big barrier and a wall, and then suddenly the corner comes into view. It's a Yahoo type of corner. You just want to launch your car in there and just enjoy the grip and power that's underneath you. So now left foot heavily on the brakes, plenty of throttle, different traction control setting to spin up those rear tyres, anything they can do to generate heat in the brakes and the tyres to give themselves a better launch off the line and a half a chance of stopping when they get down to turn 1.
Well, Fernando Alonso saying that Formula 1 is not a sport. Certainly it's a business, it's a promotion, it's many, many things throughout the year, throughout a Grand Prix weekend. For the high rollers like Luca Di Montezemolo there, the president of Fiat and Ferrari, it's most definitely a business. But just for this period of the afternoon, it most definitely is a sport. And we have 22 of the world's finest drivers about to launch their cars down the main straight. A moment of unbelievable savage beauty, but also savage violence, the start of a Formula 1 race.
Unusual to see Di Montezemolo here on race day. We were saying yesterday that he thinks he brings bad luck to the team. So we'll find out. But obviously a key day if Michael Schumacher is going to announce his retirement, and still nobody in the paddock knows for sure which way that is going to go. Goodness only knows why they're going to do it in the aftermath of a Grand Prix. Complete chaos and bedlam it's going to be later on this afternoon.
The last few cars taking their places. 53 laps. Will this be Michael Schumacher's last Italian Grand Prix? What can Fernando Alonso do from 10th on the grid? Everyone's mouth is as dry as Flavio Briatore's as we get this one underway. They're off. Schumacher on the left. Watch out for Raikkonen on the right. Schumacher cuts across to cut off Heidfeld. Now look at Kubica going aggressive on Massa. Kubica is past Massa. Della Rosa is having a go as well. And it looks to me like Kubica's up to 4th place. Can he make the chicane though? Yes, he can. Schumacher's having a battle with Heidfeld. They've already tangled this season once already. Where is Alonso as Kubica goes past his teammate? The Polish driver, Robert Kubica, in only his 3rd Grand Prix, is up into 3rd place. Raikkonen leads it, though. Michael Schumacher is 2nd.
Heidfeld let Michael Schumacher off the hook big time there. He had the line, he had the speed, but Michael Schumacher went around the outside. Alonso directly up to 8th place, ahead of Barrichello and Fisichella. Jenson Button is 6th. Coulthard moves up a place to 13th too. Massa having a run at Heidfeld now. Dismal first lap for 3rd place man Nick Heidfeld will be under pressure also from behind now with I think Button's through as well.
Alonso is having a look at Della Rosa. There they are, the 3 of them at the back. Barrichello is involved in that as well. At the front, meanwhile, Kimi Raikkonen is pulling away from Michael Schumacher. Heidfeld seems to be, Kubica seems to be losing some ground. There is the Renault of World Championship leader Fernando Alonso pulling out of the slipstream of is one of the cars is weaving quite a bit. Is that it's Button? Yeah, it is Jenson Button.
Yeah.
And looks like Alonso is having quite a battle here with Heidfeld.
I don't think it's a problem for Jenson. He just wants more tyre temperature. He's struggling, but he did clear Heidfeld. Then this will be Alonso also having a look at the inside of Nick Heidfeld. So Heidfeld really struggling on this first lap. Alonso up to P6.
Yeah, it's the battle for 6th place then. Oh, he's missed the chicane. And has he collided with another car? No, he just missed it. But will he have to let Heidfeld back again? He hadn't really completed the move before the chicane, had he?
Yeah, he nearly collected Button. That's a tough call. I think he should let Heidfeld back through. I mean, he had passed him, but he maintained the position by going across the curbs. But Heidfeld's so slow at the moment that he can't really back up and let him through. Heidfeld's struggling so much.
We had exact same situation in Suzuka last year, do you remember? He was waiting for a call on the radio telling him what to do. It was Christian Klein was the car at that occasion, and the same thing happened. He wasn't fast enough to get back in front of Alonso, who lost a whole bunch of time in that extraordinary Japanese Grand Prix at the end of last season. Now Alonso finds himself in the same position, but for sure he cut the chicane and took the place.
Well, he took the place, then cut the chicane and maintained the place, but we'll have another look at it. But Massa was lining up for a run at Kubica in the BMW, currently running in 3rd place. Button then not choosing or needing to weave his car this time on the way down to Parabolica as Alonso cruises up behind him. Raikkonen sets a new fastest lap in the race, 1:23.7, 4/10 faster than Michael Schumacher. He may be a lap or two shorter on fuel, but that's all. Kimi Raikkonen over Michael Schumacher.
So Raikkonen leads this one. Michael Schumacher, 2.5 behind him. Kubica, stunning first lap for the Polish driver, takes him from 6th on the grid up to 3rd place. He's just 4.5 seconds behind the race leader. Massa is behind him. Then it's Jenson Button. Then it's Alonso. Then it's Heidfeld in 7th place. De La Rosa is 8th. Fisichella is 9th, just a place better than where he started. And Rubens Barrichello is down in 10th place, having started 8th on the grid.
Plumes of black dust from the brakes from Kubica's BMW. It's a long way to go in this Grand Prix with several heavy braking zones per lap. First, Raikkonen 1.4 ahead of Michael Schumacher. Kubica is 3.3 seconds down the road with Felipe Massa in very close company for 4th. Button's less than a second behind Alonso, less than a second behind Button. Very close up in the tops. Well, 2nd, 3rd through to 6th.
Certainly has the lap times comparable as well. Here's another look at it, Martin.
So the move is done, but Heidfeld made the chicane. Alonso just managing. You could argue that he got the move done because he was so late on the brakes. I don't know why he decided to take the grass, and that's how close he got to the back of Button. I don't know why he didn't go across the green tarmac. Had he have done so, he might well have slid into Button, actually.
An indication possibly of the mindset of Alonso as we look at Felipe Massa attacking Robert Kubica. But given Alonso's current relationship with the stewards, you'd have to say they're bound to take a look at that one. And it's really probably only a matter of time before we get notification of it. I wonder which way it'll go. It could have a massive bearing on the World Championship. Already with Michael Schumacher looking pretty good at the front here. Just behind Kimi Raikkonen in 2nd place. The two Midlands there having a battle, and it looks as though Albers is not happy with his teammate Montero, waving his hand at him.
Well, interestingly, the computer doesn't even say car 1 missed the apex of turn 1, so at the moment it's not up there, but I'm keeping an eye on the 3rd page of computer stuff we get up there, because I'm half expecting it to say car 1 under investigation.
On board with Massa. That's Kubica in front of us. Coming down towards Ascari now. 210 miles an hour, braking down to 110 as we go through this beautiful switchback corner. And then down the long back straight. Back on board with Massa. This is where he felt he was impeded yesterday in qualifying by Fernando Alonso. There's another look at Montero, who, that's why Albers was waving at him.
Yeah, we should let him through on that one, but we only really saw the end of it. Raikkonen a 1:23.5, Michael Schumacher a 1:23.6, nothing between them. But 3rd, 4th, 5th and co are all in the 1:24s. As ever, we seem to get a couple of them breaking away at the front. Massa still can't get the job done on Kubica. Ted has news.
Just a thought on the Alonso-Heidfeld thing, Martin. Do you remember when Michael Schumacher cut the chicane at Hungary and didn't let Pedro de la Rosa through? Well, there was a clarification to all the drivers from Charlie Whiting. Michael got away with it that time. It looks very similar this case. It looks like Fernando's going to get away with this one.
A very good point, Ted. Yep, as long as the car is substantially in front before it misses the chicane, then the pass stands. That's a very, very good point. And that was discussed in the driver's briefing and the briefing by the FIA. Here's the replay of the start. You can see Fernando Alonso, the first of the Renaults in the mix. You can see that Kubica was well up there, and at the back it looked like someone cut the chicane. Here's another look at it, Martin.
Yeah, not a single pile of expensive carbon fibre down in the apex of turn 1, which is unusual for this place. Everybody getting away quite well, several getting away very well. Heidfeld up to P2 and then just pinches the apex, and Michael snatches away from him. Kubica at the front there overtakes his teammate as they scamper any which way they can to avoid contact at the back of the field. And you really do sit there hoping that somebody will not run into the back. Alonso gets away better than Barrichello, and there he goes. And is that Fisichella in front of us? It is indeed. So then Alonso goes right down the outside, says, I'll have a bit of that, thank you very much, that's too easy. And therefore, I suspect that the conversation on the grid between Flavio Briatore, Giancarlo Fisichella and Fernando Alonso was, you just got to let him go. Raikkonen leads then, it's lap 6. He's 1.5 seconds clear of Michael Schumacher.
Just a look at the movers. You can see Kubica, obviously the big mover, also Alonso up to 6th. Losing 4 places off the grid, Nick Heidfeld. Everybody else staying more or less way they were, apart from Barrichello down a couple of spots. And Rosberg getting himself up to 11th, riding on board still with Felipe Massa. With still Kubica in the BMW doing a great job in front of him.
All 22 cars still running. Webber's made his way up to 13th from 19th on the grid, so he's found a bit more grip today than he could muster up in qualifying yesterday. Schumacher's closed the gap down to Raikkonen now, just 1 second, but Alonso's not exactly climbing all over the back of Button for 5th and 6th. Alonso's progress through the field has been halted.
Button lapping in the mid-124s at the moment, same sort of pace, a few tenths of a second slower than Kubica and Massa in front of him, but a good bit slower than Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. Almost a second slower, in fact. Those two at the front are definitely pulling away from everybody else. There's Ralf Schumacher, Toyota's 2nd worst qualifying performance of the season here in Monza. This wasn't great in Turkey, but it's even worse here. So a bit of head scratching to do there. Their old technical director, Mike Gascoigne, is back in the Formula 1 paddock. He's part of the Midland deal that we were using almost 19,000 RPM at this stage of the race. They'll adjust it as the race goes on, up and down, whenever they need a few more revs, but that sort of rev level is pretty close to the maximum at this point for Toyota. Lap 8 of the 53-lap Italian Grand Prix from Monza. Kimi Raikkonen is leading at the moment by just over a second from Michael Schumacher, who may be no more than an hour and a half away from announcing his retirement from Formula 1 racing at the end of the season. We'll have that announcement hopefully before we leave you this afternoon. Robert Kubica is driving stunningly. Polish driver in the BMW up in 3rd place. Here he is, being chased by Schumacher's teammate Felipe Massa. Jenson Button is 5th. Lapping about 8 or 9 tenths of a second slower than the leaders, but at the same sort of pace as the cars in front of him. Tucked up behind Button is World Championship leader Fernando Alonso, who is at the centre of a considerable controversy here this weekend for an incident yesterday in qualifying and the comments he's made about it afterwards. And one thing leading to another. It really is a very eventful Italian Grand Prix weekend already. Certainly a good start by Raikkonen, who's determined here this afternoon to show the Italian fans what he's made of.
Oh, Massa getting well out of shape there on the way into turn 1. We only caught a flash of it in the corner of the screen, almost with his right front wheel in the air. We had so much oversteer. I don't think it was there. It looked a little bit like a soft left rear tyre, but he appears to be, and there we go, as though on just a load of oversteer basically on downshift as the downforce decays and you're still heavy on the brakes. You've got a lot of weight transfer to the front, and then you're downshifting 6 gears in there, and suddenly the back end can let go. That's dropped him slightly off the back of Massa. Still no sign of any mention of Alonso cutting the corner or being under investigation, so it looks like that one has just made its way through unnoticed and without penalty. Raikkonen's lead is moving around somewhere between 1 and 1.4 seconds. But they're lapping in the 123s. Further down the field, cars are doing 126s. It'll not be that far into the Grand Prix where they start lapping people. Those cars later in the field are running further on their tank of fuel, I'd imagine. But it's intensely close up front.
Oh, we've got a retirement, and guess who it is? Arguably the least reliable team of the season so far. Nico Rosberg and Williams. It's not been a great run for Rosberg recently. That's his 4th consecutive retirement in what has been a pretty poor season for the Williams team. Frank Williams saying yesterday it's not so much about quality control, it's just about the processes that they have at Williams that sometimes aren't as closely observed as they should be. No technical shake-ups, no management shake-ups in the offing at Williams, but clearly a need to refocus next season with Toyota engines and make a car which is not only faster but also considerably more reliable, because Williams simply are not picking up the points this season. Only 10 points so far, languishing down in 7th in the world, 8th in the World Championship. Back on board with Massa then. Kubica up in front of us. We're lapping about 7/10 of a second at this stage of the Grand Prix, slower than Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher.
Close enough at these kind of speeds to pick up some slipstream, but that BMW's been fast in a straight line all through free practice and qualifying. Kubica driving it extremely well with a maturity quite a long way beyond his experience. It's surprising me that Alonso's not faster at the back of the field, as Raikkonen does a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix on a 1:23.1.
I don't have full drive anymore.
Okay, so he's coasting in almost on ticker.
Are you seeing any hydraulic warning on the dash? No hydraulic warning.
Massa has a look at Kubica. Peter Sauber, the former owner of this team, who still retains a 20% shareholding in the BMW Sauber team, reckons that Kubica's arrival has made Heidfeld half a second a lap faster, and you can see why. Ted Kravitz, what have you got?
Yeah, Rosberg's just coasted past me. He's lost drive, James, that's what it is. He just has no way of accelerating, so that's got to be something in the gearbox or drivetrain area. He's just lost drive as Rosberg.
Well, you just saw, as Ted was explaining, that the curbs at the second chicane and Massa climbing all over them, it puts an enormous shock load through the transmission of these Formula One cars, so it's not that unusual to have transmission failures here.
Yep, drive shaft in particular, as the car takes off over the curb, the wheels spin, and when it lands back down on the ground again, it's such a violent shock for the drive shafts. They quite often break. It's one of the big problems here. This is really also an engine circuit par excellence. 79% of the lap is spent on full throttle. It is the toughest track of the year on engines. Pedro de la Rosa starting to pick the pace up now in 8th place, the McLaren driver, teammate to Kimi Raikkonen, the race leader. He's just set the fastest first sector of anybody. He's down in 8th place, tucked up behind Heidfeld, looking for answers as to as Raikkonen sets a new fastest lap and dips into the 1:22s. Looking for answers as to why Alonso isn't faster than he is. He's tucked up half a second behind Jenson Button, lapping in the low 1:24s. So a good second and a half a lap slower than Raikkonen. I wonder if Alonso could go faster here, get in front of Button.
Well, it's interesting that Alonso's choosing to get out of Button's slipstream down the long straights. I suspect he's a bit marginal on cooling, if that's the case. But it's not looking good for him at the moment. He's in for a position that will give him 3 World Championship points only. Michael up there with 8 World Championship points should the race stop now. Classic Alonso driving style of just throwing the car towards the apex of the corner with a lot of understeer. I wonder if he'll need a twister front wing on that at the first stops. But it's interesting to see that behind him, Heidfeld and De La Rosa are beginning to catch Fernando Alonso. You better hope he's got more fuel in there. He's got a lot of understeer. That's his problem. The front end of the car will simply not stick.
Just explain it to us then, as hopefully as we go on board into parabolic. I don't know if we're going to cut back on board again.
13, Raikkonen's lead, now 1.5 seconds over Michael Schumacher. They're 12 seconds clear of third place man Kubica.
Well, understeer or no understeer, and certainly Alonso had a good look up the inside of Jenson Button there into the first chicane. Back on board with the world champion. Looking up the road at Jenson and the Honda. A difficult weekend for them. No running at all on the Friday after test driver Anthony Davidson blew 2 engines up. The team very wisely not sending the race drivers out in case they had to take an engine penalty for changing engines later in the weekend. They reviewed the situation and decided to use an old specification engine. So Jenson not quite as fast as he'd hoped to be this weekend, but still doing a good job in 5th.
Quite a duel going on at the front. Raikkonen, another new fastest lap, but Schumacher just about keeping him in sight with a 0.2 of a second slower. They're both in the 1:22s. Everybody else, late 1:23s and way then down 24s, 25s as you go through the field. This pair are setting an amazing pace. Lap 14 it is. First stops, I think, coming up, probably lap 15 or 16, then through 19, 20 and 21 for the later 2 stoppers.
Yeah, so we're not too far away from the first stop. Judging by the relative pace of McLaren and Ferrari through free practice, it looks as though Raikkonen probably is slightly lighter on fuel than Michael Schumacher, but it may only be by a couple of laps, maybe 3. So Raikkonen certainly making himself a contender here this afternoon, trading fastest sector times with the 7 times champion at the moment. Schumacher looking relatively comfortable though, 2.5 behind him. And 2 of Formula One's young guns here, Kubica and Massa, still at it. You get the feeling that's going to be a race-long duel, don't you?
Get the feeling that's going to be a career-long duel now, actually, with these 2.
Plenty of other young guns as well coming in to join the fray. Exciting time for Formula One. Lap 15 of the Italian Grand Prix, the first man to make a pit stop. Pedro Della Rosa in the McLaren comes in. Longish fuel load going in then for him. We're entering the pit stop window. Kimi Raikkonen is leading this Grand Prix from Michael Schumacher by just over 1.5 seconds. They're much faster than anybody else, 1 second a lap faster than anybody else. Actually, 16 seconds now, the margin back to Robert Kubica in 3rd place. Felipe Massa is 4th, Button is 5th. Fernando Alonso started 10th. And is up into 6th place. Earlier on, he passed Nick Heidfeld, had to cut across the chicane in doing so, but nothing from the stewards. And after what Michael Schumacher got up to at the end of the Grand Prix in Budapest, clearly new rules in place there for overtaking cars. As long as you're substantially in front before you cut across the chicane, it would appear that that is okay. Certainly the stewards don't appear to be looking at it at the moment. And now Kimi Raikkonen, the race leader, comes into the pits. Michael Schumacher is out front on his own now. Schumacher's
looking extremely good here this afternoon. I think he'll go at least another 3 or 4 laps. So Raikkonen on pole. He made a mistake we saw in our track guide earlier on in the show. He lost a good 1/4 of a second in the Ascari chicane when he got a little bit loose and leery in there. So it did indicate that he was quite light, and that's put him back there with Heidfeld. He feeds back in 6th or 7th place, does Kimi Raikkonen. Michael Schumacher out front then, and with that massive duel he's just had with the more lightly fueled Raikkonen, he's 16 seconds clear of the pack and looking extremely good on it.
7th place is where Raikkonen rejoins. A couple of seconds behind Nick Heidfeld. You can see Rubens Barrichello down to 9th, then Trulli 10th. Mark Webber's going well. Qualified very poorly yesterday, but up to 11th place at the moment. the sole remaining Williams in the field. We've got one retirement, which is Nico Rosberg, who we heard had transmission failure, lost drive.
I think it needs to be said, I mean, I think the whole paddock thought Alonso was hard done by with that penalty on the grid. I think we've made that opinion very clear, but they cut him some slack down at turn 1, no doubt about it, because he made the move. He got the move done because he was super late on the brakes, was probably never going to make the corner, so marginal call there, and if they don't, and they're not going to penalise him, but they cut him a little bit of slack there.
It's interesting because I had a chat with Max Mosley this mid-morning, and he said, look, rules are rules. He broke the rules, you have to punish him. So, as you say, it's all about interpretation, and no one's perfect. The stewards, just so you know, are Tony Scott Andrews, an English lawyer who is the permanent steward. He is in every race, and one of the 3 stewards that sits. And then it's one local steward and another steward from another country. Here we've got an Italian, and we've got a South American with an Italian first name, Enzo. So that's caused a bit of controversy, but he is definitely from South America, I'm told. So a mixture of stewards, and they've been right in the middle of the action this weekend. Schumacher leading this one by 17 seconds. Button having a bit of problem there, slowing the Honda down into the second chicane. Kubica is running second, the highest he has run so far in his fledgling Formula One career. Massa is right behind him in third. Button is fourth. Alonso fifth as Ferrari get ready for a pit stop. Sixth is Heifeld, seventh Raikkonen, and eighth Fisichella. I imagine the pit stop is probably going to be for Massa. I'd be surprised if it was for Michael Schumacher, but you never know. He comes out of the Parabolica.
It is
the race. It is for him, you know. He was only a lap longer then than Raikkonen. Raikkonen pitted on lap 15. Michael Schumacher comes in at the end of 16.
Okay, so that's going to be close, and let's see what Raikkonen's out lap was. It was a 1:48.6, which includes time in pit lane and the pit stop itself, of course. And we've got to assume that Michael's one more flying lap should be enough to get the job done. Where's Raikkonen?
Heidfeld goes through. Right now, there is Raikkonen at the top of the screens. Michael Schumacher is going to come out just in front of him. That extra lap with a light car has given him the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. And now the man who is set to replace him at Ferrari, Kimi Raikkonen, is behind Michael Schumacher.
So the duel continues then. They've just swapped them around. We're expecting a Raikkonen to be announced as swapping into that car, aren't we, a little bit later on? Fascinating that they're within 100 metres on the racetrack now. And, well, what can Raikkonen do now? How will his car be on that second set of tyres? How will the Ferrari be underneath Michael Schumacher? It's a reset, round 2 then, the second phase of this Grand Prix for the lead. Meanwhile, Alonso has started to find some pace, but he's still behind Button. They're running 4th and 5th.
So who's leading this Grand Prix? A Polish driver by the name of Robert Kubica is still out there. Michael Schumacher's pitted, so has Kimi Raikkonen, and that means that Kubica is leading a lap for the first time in his Formula One career. He's the 11th different driver to lead a lap during the course of this season, and hats off to him. It was a stunning start from Kubica to go from 6th place up to 3rd on the opening lap. He goes across the line now as a race leader.
His family will be getting a photograph of that. So Kubica leads, and you've got to be super impressed with the way he's handled the pressure from Felipe Massa and then just edged away from him. There is Alonso. Now let's see how far ahead of Michael Schumacher he is. He's only 5.5 seconds ahead of Schumacher, and Schumacher's stopped. So Alonso, from a damage limitation, he's looking in very bad shape at the moment today.
It really is damage limitation. Michael Schumacher is going to take some stopping this afternoon. 10 World Championship points are beckoning. The margin, I'll remind you, is 12 points in Alonso's favour at the moment, but it looks like Schumacher's going to take a big bite out of that. Obviously, Alonso will point to being moved back to 10th on the grid as part of the reason for it. He's behind Button. We don't know really whether he has the speed. We'll find out when he gets clear of Button whether he's got a faster car under him than he's able to show in this opening phase, but certainly Button is well and truly fast enough to keep him behind him. Alonso's only really had one look at him down to first chicane, a little bit of a look at him once into chicane 2 as well, but generally speaking, Alonso's been that sort of distance behind him.
Yeah, Alonso's understeering like a supermarket trolley though. They'll have to give him a touch of front wing or change the tyre pressures in the first stop. He is just 4.8 seconds behind Kubica, though, so at least he's staying in touch with the bit part players, because this is all about Schumacher and Raikkonen.
Massa pits, but you saw just at the top of the screens, Alonso pits as well. He's had enough of sitting behind Jenson Button, although having said that, this is lap 19, lap 20 I should say, and that's probably his scheduled stop. In fact, it is, I'm sure, his scheduled stop. He comes back out then behind Felipe Massa. Kubica is still out there, so the grid slot he got himself was on a big fuel load. Massa comes out behind Barrichello in 9th place.
Oh,
And very close with the Toyota of Jarno Trulli. And Trulli is forced to take to the chicane. So Massa is now in 10th place.
Massa's allowed to join any line he wants after the end of the solid white line. We'll probably see that again, hopefully, from the Italian directors. But Trulli let him off the hook there, because Massa was about to have a lap, or it's not a lap car, it's full position actually. It's absolutely full position. It's Alonso now that faces the task of catching and passing his old teammate Jarno Trulli.
Yeah, that's not worked out for Alonso to come back out in 10th place behind Jarno Trulli. And this miserable afternoon, a miserable weekend really for the reigning world champion, continues. 34 laps still to go here, and he's got a mountain to climb. Well, speaking of champions, I'm delighted to tell you, as we take a quick look at the battle with Massa and Trulli. We believe Jenson Button is in the pits. Yes, he is. Ted Kravitz is there.
Yeah, absolutely crucial stop for Jenson. And what are they doing? Yeah, they're changing some tyre pressures in the car. So Jenson not happy with the handling. That's a good stop, though, but it's going to be very close with Alonso.
Closer to Midland, never mind that. Almost hit each other on the way out. That's Albers, who's already been in some close company with his own teammate earlier in the race. That was very close.
Well, look at this. How close is this? This is Alonso and Button in the back. We're out of frame now. We're watching the wrong cars, because Alonso at full speed, Button getting up to speed. And he's made it still. Button still in front of Alonso.
Why don't they get a director who understands Formula One racing? That's ridiculous. Alonso tucked up then behind Jenson Button, just as he was going into the first round of pit stops. I beg your pardon, that's Barrichello.
Right, Alonso's done Button in the background there. We're watching Ferraris, but the story's going on behind there. So Jenson Button sadly has lost that slot to Fernando Alonso. This was the pit exit. This is not for position. That'll be a lapped Midland Spiker, whatever it's called now. And close, wasn't it?
It was very, very close indeed. So still Jenson Button. There is Barrichello. Massa. Kubica still leading this race on lap 22. Into the pits comes his teammate Nick Heidfeld, who qualified third. And BMW really have underlined their pace. They've gone a long way into this Grand Prix, much further than people expected.
It always feels painfully slow, pedestrian, when you come in. You're doing 62 miles an hour down the pit lane. When you're so used to doing 200 plus, it just feels like you're virtually stationary. And where does Heidfeld feeds back out, and that's a close fight with Fernando Alonso, isn't it? And that's bad news for Alonso too. So where was Heidfeld? He was behind that pair, wasn't he?
That's De La Rosa out of the race. Pedro De La Rosa has gone off the racetrack, and we're back on board with Alonso. That's Nick Heidfeld we're battling with. Fisichella, Alonso's teammate, meanwhile, is up into 5th place. He's running a long way in this Grand Prix. There you can see the top 8 at the moment. Trulli yet to stop, Barrichello yet to stop, and Fisichella and Kubica yet to make their stops.
I think Heidfeld's just made 2 places there. He's in front of Alonso and Button as Kubica pits from the lead, and Louise has found Nico Rosberg.
Nico, cars take such a pounding over the curbs here. Do you think that's what's caused the transmission failure?
Yes, I think so, because it was in the second chicane where it happened, so I would assume that it was because of that. And yeah, it's unfortunate because, you know, we've been going through that chicane now for 3 test days and the whole weekend and everything, and nothing went wrong, so yeah, it's a bit of a pity.
Your 4th consecutive retirement. You were the big success story at the start of the season. That must all seem like a lifetime ago.
Not much of a success story anymore, is it?
That's true. Thanks, Nico.
Very realistic Nico Rosberg there. So Robert Kubica having led 6 Grand Prix laps, makes his pit stop, rejoins. That is the top 8. Schumacher, Raikkonen, Fisichella, Kubica 4th, 5th Barrichello, 6th Massa, 7th Trulli, and 8th Nick Heidfeld. There goes Pedro de la Rosa, a replay of him going off the racetrack. We go back to live pictures, and Rubens Barrichello in 5th place ahead of fellow Brazilian Felipe Massa. Behind them, the Toyota of Jarno Trulli, and all of these runners lapping in the 1 minute 20. Scott Speed, David Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher having a heck of a scrap here for 12th place. All 3 of them arriving at the first chicane at the same time. Scott Speed is in front in the Toro Rosso of the Red Bull Racing of David Coulthard, who's not had a particularly eventful weekend. But there's Ralf Schumacher getting out of the way of the pair of them. Toyota have been struggling as well here. Certainly the form team at the moment is Ferrari. Michael Schumacher leading Kimi Raikkonen in the McLaren by 2.2 seconds. At the end of this race, we're expecting an announcement from Schumacher, possibly that he's going to retire at the end of this season. We're also expecting an announcement from Ferrari that Raikkonen will be the man to take his place. What an eventful day for these two to be having a duel for the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. There is Nick Heidfeld. He leapfrogged both Alonso and Jenson Button in the pit stops, but he did so by speeding in the pit lane, and he's coming in now to serve a drive-through penalty that would liberate both Alonso and Button. I'll remind you that Alonso was able to get in front of Button in the first round of pit stops. That's absolutely vital for him. He's now behind Jarno Trulli, who has yet to make a pit stop. Neither has Rubens Barrichello in this Grand Prix. So when that's all shaken out, I expect Fernando Alonso to be back up in 6th place. Undoubtedly the star of the opening phase of the Grand Prix, though, Robert Kubica, qualified 7th, but on a big fuel load he did that, and he managed to lead 6 laps of this Grand Prix, and he is now in 4th place behind Giancarlo Fisichella in the Renault, who has yet to make a stop.
So 3 retirements. De La Rosa we saw pulling off onto the gravel. Yamamoto for the Super Aguri. Can't remember seeing him go out actually in Rosberg with drive problems for the Williams Cosworth. And in the pits, too fast, too sideways. Jarno Trulli, Toyota not having a good afternoon. Sorry, was that Sato, was it?
Yep, Sato getting a little bit leery, giving the Super Aguri mechanics a scary moment. We've got a lot of red and white cars in Formula One these days. And here comes Giancarlo Fisichella. This is a one-stop strategy this afternoon for Fisichella, so he will not need to pit again. It'll be very interesting to see where he rejoins, and a lot of two-stoppers are going to have to think about him. The likes of Massa, Alonso and Button are going to have to think about Giancarlo Fisichella this afternoon.
Well, we'll monitor his pace. He was a bit steady in the early stages of the Grand Prix, but he had a heavy car at that time. Ted has further news.
Yeah, I tell you who really didn't work out for him, that's Felipe Massa. Talking about one stops, he's rejoined behind Rubens Barrichello, the only other top runner apart from Fissi, who we've just seen on a one stop. So this is throwing any chance of great points for Massa completely out the window. Ferrari need those points for the constructors, remember.
Yep, just 2 points the margin between the Renault team and Ferrari going into this race in Renault team's favour. It looks as though Michael Schumacher is going to give them the Constructors' Championship lead. Whatever happens here today, he cannot take the Drivers' Championship lead, because that is 12 points in Alonso's favour.
And to square itself up when Barrichello pits, he's up in P5, but he hasn't pitted yet. Nor has Trulli, who's 7th. Alonso down in 8th, but he's really a net 5th when the pit stops all shake out.
So Michael Schumacher able to shadow Kimi Raikkonen in the early phase of this Grand Prix. Raikkonen came into the pits a lap before Michael Schumacher, and that was enough for Schumacher on a low fuel in the car to put in a lap that was good enough when he came to the pits a lap later to take the lead of this Grand Prix. Raikkonen is staying in touch though, just 2.5 seconds behind the Ferrari of the 7-times world champion as Kubica laps the Super Aguri there. It just looks like it's got its fuel tank flap open.
Yeah, it's like a parachute around this place. That normally folds down when you switch off the pit lane speed limiter, and it hasn't happened on the Super Aguri, so that'll be slowing it down a bit and hurts the rear wing too. The gap between Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen just 2.4 seconds. They're then 18 seconds clear of Kubica, who's in a clear third place. The curbs down there, we drove across doing our track guide in a road car, and it shakes the fillings out of your teeth. They're amazingly aggressive. That's the corner that Massa there, well wide on the exit of the first Lesmo, out there onto the Astro Turf out on the outside. You think they'd have about as much grip as a Salty Otter, but actually it's no problem at all. There's enough grip on a dry day to get away with it.
Yeah, he just about got away with it. Well, Lewis Hamilton in the GP2 race this morning had a bit of a moment down there, which meant that he didn't win the race, finished second. And I'm delighted to tell all of you, as we look again at Felipe Massa, that Lewis Hamilton is now the champion of GP2. We heard from him earlier on, and what we can look forward to some great moments, I think, in Formula One in future, in the company of Britain's rising new star, 21-year-old Lewis Hamilton. And, well, Ron Dennis saying yesterday in his press conference that Hamilton will test a McLaren Formula One car in one of the next 2 tests, which are going to happen before the Chinese Grand Prix, which is 3 weeks from now. So Hamilton will get his chance to run, not with a view to running this season in Formula One, we understand, but obviously to get started in the process of becoming a Grand Prix driver. And we wait with bated breath to see whether Dennis will have the bottle to put him in as a race car for next season, or whether he'll take a more prudent approach and make him his test driver. That's all in the future, though. Looking down at Ralf Schumacher, 16th place at Toyota, making his stop. Also Montero.
He's having a grim afternoon, is Ralf, in the Toyota. Raikkonen's desperately trying to come back at Michael Schumacher. He's pegging him to an extent on this lap. They're nip and tuck in the first 2 sectors, but that gap is ever growing. It's now up to 2.8 seconds. Michael Schumacher's lead.
Montero exiting the pits in the Midland, both the Midlands running at the moment. His teammate Albers is also out there. I guess Albers will be in good shape for the future as we look at Albers being passed by one of the Toro Rossos, I believe, Scott Speed, but certainly Albers will be feeling pretty confident now that his team is owned by a Dutch consortium, and they are very keen on their Formula One racing in Holland. We're fascinated to see what that team will become. And of course, one of the pivotal parts of it is Mike Gascoigne, formerly technical director of this team, Toyota, and Gascoigne back in Formula One then as technical director of Spyker Midland. Trulli from 7th place was in front of Jenson Button before he made that stop.
So let's just see how the top 10 shaking out now then. And that is Liuzzi having a run, I believe, at Christian Klein. The 4 Red Bull cars are pretty much line astern. David Coulthard just getting through there from the emerging Jarno Trulli. Coulthard, as Speed's pitted now, Coulthard's now back up to 12th. Michael Schumacher leads, Raikkonen 2nd, Kubica 3rd, Barrichello yet to stop 4th, Massa 5th, Alonso 6th. Trulli has just stopped, so Button will now be 7th, Webber yet to stop 8th, Fisichella 9th, and Heidfeld, after that drive-through penalty, now P10.
So Rubens Barrichello, who qualified in 8th place, 7/10 of a second behind teammate Jenson Button, is still out there on his fuel load. He hasn't pitted. That must have been a heck of a qualifying lap by Rubens Barrichello, because he has gone 10 laps longer than teammate Button. An astonishing performance that must have been yesterday for Rubens Barrichello. In he comes.
Yeah, he did seem pretty chirpy on the grid, didn't he? So that's why he knew he was carrying a chunky old fuel load.
Where will it bring him, though? Jenson Button goes through. Giancarlo Fisichella goes through, so does Heidfeld. Heidfeld in 9th place. And he rejoins behind him. So he rejoins in 10th place. Into the pits comes Liuzzi in the Toro Rosso. One of 3 Italian drivers in the field, alongside Giancarlo Fisichella and Jarno Trulli. And we already know that Tonio Liuzzi will have another chance with the Toro Rosso team next season in Formula One. Not really been able to show what he can do. As a lot of people in the Formula One paddock think that Liuzzi is an absolute star, but his name doesn't get mentioned in the circles of Rosberg, Hamilton, Massa, Kubica and the rest. Down the inside and putting a lap is Michael Schumacher, going very, very deep in his attempts to do so. That will have cost him some time. Raikkonen is only 3 seconds behind, and the Toro Rosso wanting to come back through again. Schumacher lost some momentum there.
Yeah, what will save is Bacon, though, is there are now 2 back markers between him and Kimi Raikkonen. But he had a 3.3 second lead as they went over the line, and that will have diminished by at least a second to a second and a half. Michael Schumacher leads from Kimi Raikkonen. It's lap 32.
You'd have to say that at the moment the one-stoppers are reasonably well placed. Giancarlo Fisichella in 7th and Barrichello in 9th, but all the cars in front of them have to stop again, and so that could work out quite nicely for Rubens Barrichello. He's racing against his teammate Jenson Button really this afternoon on that basis. And taking a look here at Ralf Schumacher and Scott Speed, and Ralf Schumacher making his way through.
Oh, he's very wide though, Ralf. Just hung on to the outside of the track. He got the job done and then just got in a little bit too hot and threw it all away.
Another look at Michael Schumacher, having difficulty lapping the Toro Rosso and having to take to the bumps on the inside. There it is again, just left his braking point a little bit late, didn't he?
Yeah, it's so easy to do. You're watching the other car and you've got to find a braking point at kind of warp speed, get it all slowed down, and a couple of meters too late and you're in trouble. And then of course the wider you go, the worse the grip becomes. You get a lot of marbles and rubbish out there. Raikkonen's just 2.3 seconds behind now, and Michael Schumacher just looking a touch ragged in this phase of the Grand Prix. This is turning out to be an immense battle between these two, and they really are in a class of their own this afternoon. Now 20 seconds clear of the field.
Coulthard pits from 12th. He went a long way into this race before making a stop. You look on board at Heidfeld and Fisichella. This is the battle for 7th place. Did he complete it? Yes, he did. Fisichella, of course, very heavy with fuel. Heidfeld stopped much earlier than him. The halfway stage of the Italian Grand Prix here at Monza. Michael Schumacher is leading this race by just 2.5 seconds from Kimi Raikkonen, the man who's set to replace him at Ferrari next season. All those announcements coming up after the Grand Prix. This is by far Raikkonen's most effective drive since Monte Carlo, where he had a chance of winning. He desperately wants to win a race, and he wants to put a good show on here for the Italian Tifosi. Behind him, it's tremendous. Robert Kubica is in 3rd place in the BMW, and looking strong. He led 6 laps of this Grand Prix earlier on, went a long way into the race before refueling. Felipe Massa has been behind him throughout the race. Fernando Alonso is having a difficult time. Started 10th on the grid, having been penalised controversially by the stewards yesterday for blocking Massa in qualifying. He's fought his way up to 5th. Had a couple of controversial moments along the way, but seems to have got away with them. But at the moment, he's just setting his fastest lap of the race so far, but he hasn't had the speed today of Schumacher and Raikkonen at the front. He's 29 seconds behind them as we take a look at the ongoing battle between David Coulthard and Jarno Trulli. That's a scrap down in 13th place. Jenson Button is going quite strongly in 6th place. Nick Heidfeld is also worth watching in the BMW. And we've lost 3 cars, De La Rosa, Yamamoto and Rosberg.
And they're much happier with Alonso's car now after that first stop. He's now within a tenth or two of the leaders. His best, save for unreliability of Schumacher or Raikkonen, his best chance now is P3. He's just 3.8 seconds away from 3rd place and lapping more quickly than Massa and Kubica. So Alonso is beginning to come alive with 19 laps remaining. And he's just way too far behind to have a look at Michael Schumacher or Kimi Raikkonen. So it's very much a 2-part race at the moment.
On board with Raikkonen through the Parabolica. A feature of this Monza racetrack for many, many years. They've been racing here since the 1920s. They used to have banking, which is still here for those of you who are interested. You can go out and have a look at it. And pretty scary it is too. It was a long, long lap in those days. And this has always been a very, very fast racetrack. It's the fastest one on the Formula One calendar. Average lap speed in the region of 160 miles an hour. 3 separate occasions they hit 200 miles an hour.
Interesting, Kimi Raikkonen didn't do the test day last week, said he got a back problem after his shunt in Turkey. So he's not been here for a year since he won the race, but Raikkonen's very quickly got up to speed. And the test work they did last week obviously found him a good set of race tyres too, with De La Rosa and Paffett taking the testing roles there. But Raikkonen very happy with his setup, and he can match Michael Schumacher, he just cannot close the gap.
So Pedro De La Rosa, teammate of Kimi Raikkonen, is out of this Grand Prix. Louise Goodman has found him.
Pedro, looked like your pace dropped off a bit before that spin. Was there some kind of technical problem?
Well, we suspect the engine. We had a problem and lost power and had to stop the car. So,
how quick is that system McLaren out there? Do you think Kimi's got the pace and the strategy to get the lead back from Michael?
Well, I don't know really, but it will be a very tight finish because I've been looking now at the lap times. They are very close, and Monza is just a typical race where, you know, 1/10 is a lot of time, and strategy, pit stops and timing, have a good pit stop and a quick pit stop can make a huge difference, especially when the delete is between 2 and 3 seconds.
Thank you.
Michael Schumacher's just had a poor lap, a 1:23.4, as Raikkonen did a 1:22.7. The gap down to just 2 seconds now with Kimi Raikkonen, and is that a back marker in between? It is, because it's not a red Ferrari. But Raikkonen applying a lot of pressure to Schumacher.
Yeah,
Kubica, Massa and Alonso, 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Schumacher made a little mistake lapping a slower car through that first chicane a few laps ago and lost time, had to go over the top of the chicane to avoid one of the Toro Rossos. That cost him a little bit of time. There's no question that McLaren have vastly improved their car, that Raikkonen is really up for it this weekend, as he's certainly, in qualifying, he was 0.02 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher, carrying just 1 lap less fuel. So really bang on in pace, and that's not what people expected. Michelin have worked hard on their performance in qualifying and their race tyres as well. And clearly McLaren are competitive with Ferrari here this weekend. And Kimi Raikkonen is absolutely making the most of it. It's interesting though with De La Rosa, he was 8/10 slower than his teammate in qualifying, and he had less fuel in the car. So not a great qualifying performance yesterday by De La Rosa. That may have some bearing on this winter and next year, and Lewis Hamilton and Gary Paffett and the rest of them.
So they've all cleared the back marker then of the Spiker Midland. Kubica beginning to come under pressure. He is lapping quite a bit more slowly than Massa, and particularly Alonso now in 5th place. They've just dropped Button. He's about 9 seconds adrift. So it looks like some solid points for Jenson, but not a sniff of a podium at the moment. The lead, though, it's Raikkonen who's now had the difficult lap. It's now back up to 2.5 seconds for Michael Schumacher.
And keep an eye on Fernando Alonso. He's now closed the gap up to Felipe Massa. He's just over a second behind him. Massa, of course, is less than a second behind Kubica. The target then for Fernando Alonso in the remaining 16 laps, during which there will be the second round of pit stops, is to leapfrog these 2 cars and get himself on the podium. That is the best he can hope for here this afternoon. He hasn't got the speed. He's a long way behind Schumacher and Raikkonen. So 1st and 2nd places would appear to be duelled out between those 2. It's all about Alonso getting himself on the podium, and the difference for him is quite a lot in points terms. 2 points difference.
Yeah, wow, surely this World Championship is going right down to the wire this year. Michael Schumacher looks like he's going to get a pocket full of points from Alonso's lead, and Kimi Räikkönen pits from second place. An easy run into the pit garage there, quite quickly into the box. Not too quickly though, he didn't force his mechanics to jump back. You saw when he dropped it into first gear, the half spin of the wheels, and as soon as he's released, that was a good, clean pit stop by McLaren.
Now bear in mind that first time round, Räikkönen pitted before Schumacher, and that meant that he could Schumacher could put the right fuel load in to know that he would stay out longer. He rejoins in front, safely in front of the Kubica-Massa battle, so he is still in second place, and they all have to pit again. But Ross Brawn, the technical director of Ferrari, will have looked at how much fuel Ferrari put into Räikkönen's car at the first stop and tailored Schumacher's strategy accordingly to give him the upper hand. So highly unlikely then that Schumacher, unless he makes a mistake, would give over the lead to Räikkönen through this phase.
So then, Alonso behind Massa. It was claimed that he held Massa up in qualifying, and he ended up on the grid behind him, as you all know by now. Ferrari are ready in the pit lane. We know Michael Schumacher pitted just a lap behind Räikkönen last time. They don't want to give Räikkönen a long run on the fresh tyres now, a chance to come back at Michael. Who will they pit first of the two Ferraris? Räikkönen was 3/10 quick. It's Michael Schumacher. They couldn't go any further. Ted's down there.
Yeah, and it's another set of used tyres. The guy on the rear tyres has to thread the wheel through those brake covers. They're so tricky. It's all going for a very quick stop. Quick stop for Ferrari. That should secure them the lead, 6.8.
A very, very impressive stop indeed by the Ferrari team. Michael Schumacher comes back out. We'll look back. There is Ross Brawn on the wall, looking at the scene. Where is Kimi Räikkönen? Answer. Amongst those cars there. There he is, Kimi Räikkönen in second place. Schumacher rejoins comfortably in front, and that was a good high-pressure pit stop by the Ferrari team. Massa is now in from 5th place, his teammate.
This is an important one too. If they want to keep more points away from Fernando Alonso, they have to keep Felipe Massa ahead of him to do maximum damage to the Renault team this afternoon. And Schumacher then comfortably back out in the lead.
That wasn't as good a stop, and not surprisingly, it was straight afterwards. The team had to recalibrate very quickly, offering possibly an opportunity then for Alonso. He's also got to get himself past Kubica as well when he makes his stop. So this is a crucial part of the race now for Fernando Alonso. You can see
he usually is the fastest man on the track of anybody in the first sector, so he's enjoying a bit of pace in these late stages of the Grand Prix. And Michael Schumacher with a face full of back markers. Heidfeld, that's why he's hanging on to the back. In fact, that's Kubica, closely followed by Alonso.
Yep, Kubica is doing a very sterling job, just 13 laps away from the finish here. At the moment, he is on for a podium position, and by my reckoning, he's been in a podium position throughout this Grand Prix, really, since the early laps. He led 6 laps of the Grand Prix. He is still on merit in 3rd place. He's got to watch out for Alonso, though, who could take it away from him. Alonso is 0.3 of a second behind him on the racetrack. We're riding on board with the race leader, Michael Schumacher.
Heidfeld pits the BMW out of vision. Schumacher launching the car across those high curves down in the second chicane. The area where the drivers want the walls and the curbs altered down there. That's Heidfeld for his second scheduled stop, his 3rd time through the pits after that speeding penalty.
Managed to jump 2 cars at the first round of pit stops as the BMW Sauber team get up to speed in terms of tactics and pit stops. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the next few years, I think, BMW. The amount of progress they've made this year since taking over Peter Sauber's team has been truly impressive. There's Alonso, though, right on the tail of Kubica. This is a massive test now for the youngster from Poland.
The trouble for Alonso is Kubica's a bit off the pace at the moment, doing 24.0, so the extra two laps he can go over Massa is not giving him any benefit. And I think this could play well into Felipe Massa's hands. And they're both in the pits at the same time. I think they called Alonso in early, but it hasn't worked because they also called Kubica in. The Renault team have got something to do now.
They've got to get him in front of Kubica. That's the first task. The second one is, of course, to get him in front of Massa. So it's very, very close indeed. Jenson Button is also in the pits. Kubica in the pits, Montero, and they're side by side. Right, Alonso on the right, Kubica on the left. It's a drag race as to who's going to get the place here, but Alonso is so determined here. He's driven by anger, and it looks like he's back out in front of Felipe Massa as well.
Will Kubica try to come up the inside? No, he thinks better of that. I think the BMW team will be very close to being penalised. They shouldn't have released that car because Alonso was well underway.
But crucially, Alonso is up into third place in this race. He has achieved his objective and got himself in front of both Massa and Kubica.
Well, let's see where they are when... let's see where they are. No, there is Massa. Sorry, you're absolutely right, James. Massa is behind him. It didn't work for him, so that it puts him on the podium.
So, at the front, Michael Schumacher leading. Kimi Raikkonen is second. Kubica has just been passed by Alonso, so Alonso up into third place. Kubica down to fourth with Massa in fifth place, and Jenson Button has made his stop as well. That's put him into seventh place behind Fisichella, who's only making one stop this afternoon, so Button losing ground there on the tactics to the Renault of Giancarlo Fisichella, and we've still got 11 laps to go.
Yeah, seeing that again confirms to me that if anybody did anything wrong there, it was BMW releasing their car into the path of a car that was already underway. And Massa then desperately trying to get back past Kubica so they can have a run at Fernando Alonso. I think Alonso, if he can put in a few quick laps now, he might be able to do something about that. Alonso's stop and his in-lap and out-lap were just extraordinarily fast.
Very impressive, and it got the job done. Schumacher then on for 10 World Championship points, Alonso on for 6. It was 12 before. It's going to be 8 going away from here, unless anything changes.
Michael Schumacher waving his fist there at a back marker in a replay, but even so, Kimi Raikkonen lost a further 0.7 of a second on that lap, so however much it hurt Michael, somebody else hurt Raikkonen even more.
Oh, who's that? It's Alonso! It's the world, listen to the crowd! And Massa goes off on the oil. There's oil down there at the first chicane. And Flavio Briatore shakes his head. And Fernando Alonso climbs out of the cockpit. His second mechanical retirement of this second half of the World Championship. And what a place for it to happen at Monza with Schumacher, his title rival, leading. It was looking like being 8 points the margin between them. Instead, it's going to be down to just 2. The Ferrari mechanics mobilised. Michael Schumacher's leading this Grand Prix. Felipe Massa, though, I think is about to make a pit stop. But Fernando Alonso is, he's got a front right puncture on his tyre. Big lock-up, and the reason is Fernando Alonso is out of this Grand Prix. He's had a massive engine failure down at the first chicane. Listen to the crowd, and that's Massa going straight on in the aftermath of it. Massa was behind him on the racetrack. That's damaged Massa's tyre, so it's damaged his race. As he argued, Alonso damaged his qualifying yesterday. But crucially, from Michael Schumacher's point of view, he was looking with Alonso third and him in the lead at leaving Monza with just 8 points behind behind Alonso. As it stays like this, there'll be just 2 points in it, with Alonso still leading Michael Schumacher by 2 points in the World Championship. Of all the places for a mechanical failure to happen, this was not it.
Well, Michael hasn't got to the end of the race yet, but that clearly has made a massive dent in Alonso's hopes for this World Championship. Michael Schumacher driving beautifully up front in the fastest car on the track. He's now pulling away from Raikkonen. He's got a 6-second lead. We had the top 3 drivers in the world, 1, 2 and 3. Alonso, the kid's got such an amazing head on him, somehow dragged that car up to P3 and got himself into 6 points. But the engine lets go, and I think Massa then locks a wheel. We're going to see another replay there. That's a big blow-up. And I think Massa behind him locked his wheels on the way into the corner and delaminated the right front. A different angle, maybe we'll see Massa this time around.
Well, don't forget, Kubica was in front of Massa, so he had to avoid it first. Massa obviously didn't avoid it quite as effectively. There you can see Kubica on the right, the white car. Massa gets a massive lock-up. Obviously couldn't see where he's going in the smoke, I'm not sure. But Kubica, who is now on target for a podium. There's the right lock-up of Massa.
Yeah, I think because the flags really had only just come out, understandably, with Alonso's car blowing up, Massa got himself on the oily line, and the Ferrari mechanics called quickly into action to replace that damaged right front. Of course, they'll put a set of 4 on while he's there.
Well, the graphics man rather gleefully giving you the Drivers' Championship prediction at the end of this race, and it makes a very sad reading indeed for Fernando Alonso, with Schumacher closing right up on him. 3 more Grand Prix to go after this one, of course. China, then Japan, and then Brazil. Alonso saying on Friday he felt that China and Japan probably would favour him, and Brazil might well favour Ferrari. It's going to be very close indeed between the 2 of them, and clearly Alonso absolutely furious at the way he's been treated this weekend by the stewards. In the end, it turned out to be academic because his engine failed in the race, and it was something you said earlier on about him not wanting to sit in the slipstream of other cars. Maybe then he obviously wanted to get cold air into his radiators. Clearly his temperatures have been running very high this afternoon, and that may well have contributed to the engine failure for Alonso. It was a fresh engine though for this Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's what they do though. Obviously cooling equals drag, and drag's the last thing you need around this racetrack. So they absolutely run to the ragged edge of not cooling the engines too much, really, because that takes away top line, straight line speed. And yeah, I did notice that every opportunity he got, he pulled out of Button's slipstream, and the hot air coming off the back of Button's car. Montero, we understand, has retired, so that makes 5 cars out of the Grand Prix then. Montero, Alonso, De La Rosa, Yamamoto and Rosberg.
Just remind you what's happening in this race then from the start. Kimi Raikkonen led Michael Schumacher in the first phase of the Grand Prix. Schumacher only able to leapfrog Raikkonen in the pit stops, but since then he's looked pretty comfortable as Michael Schumacher. Raikkonen has been second. Well, Nick Heidfeld was well up, as was Robert Kubica in the early phase of this race, and since then Kubica has never been out of a podium position, with Schumacher, Raikkonen and the rest pitting a little earlier than him. Kubica actually led 6 laps of this Grand Prix, and he has been utterly heroic today, running in 3rd place, 7 seconds ahead of the Renault of Giancarlo Fisichella. How did he get himself up there? Well, he was 9th on the grid. He's 1 stopped here this afternoon, and those tactics have given Fisichella 4th place at the moment, enabled him to leapfrog Jenson Button. There's a look at Alonso coming back into the paddock, and just look at the scrum around him. What will be going through his mind right now, I wonder? There was a lot of anger yesterday in the stewards' room. There was an awful lot of anger this morning. And well, his engine's let go now, and he's out of this Grand Prix. And so his championship lead down to just 2 World Championship points.
Raikkonen's second, but he's given up the chase. He's now 7 odd seconds adrift. He's got a 22-second margin behind him, and I suspect they've decided to just back down the revs and get to the end of this Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen may even be 1 or 2 little glitches showing up on the data acquisition back in the pits to tell them, just back off, it ain't going to happen. Seconds is all they're going to do today. The times are slow now because they're all having to move heavily to the right-hand side at the end of this pit straight to avoid the oil and bits and pieces from Alonso's car.
Well, if it was Michael Schumacher's plan to come here, win the Grand Prix and then announce his retirement, he is just 5 laps away from the plan coming to fruition. we will have the announcement from Schumacher and Ferrari coming straight up after this race. We're not exactly sure what the delivery method is going to be. It has been a slightly chaotic process with very little being given away by Ferrari, but we understand there will be an announcement, and certainly everyone in the paddock believing that announcement will be Schumacher retiring from Formula One.
And why on earth would he be doing that? And surely he's rethinking that as he's going down these long straights. Crazy to do it, crazy the way they're doing it, but anyway, that's what we think we're going to get later on this afternoon. But let's just concentrate a bit more on the race. Fisichella, with his one stop, got himself up into 4th place now and ahead of Button. Barrichello's 6th, Trulli 7th, Heidfeld is 8th. And what I'm coming to tell you is that Massa, with that extra stop, is now all the way down in 9th place.
Yeah, so it hasn't worked out for Felipe Massa in any way, shape or form. He felt he was blocked yesterday in this corner here, the Parabolica, by Fernando Alonso. The TV pictures, certainly the onboards from Massa's perspective, would suggest that Alonso was quite a long way in front of him, but still, the stewards felt that Alonso got in his way. They moved him back 5 places on the grid. Massa said he would have been on pole position if it hadn't been for that, and the stewards looked at the data and agreed with him. So it's been a Saturday and a Sunday of things not working out for the winner of the last Grand Prix, Felipe Massa, but it certainly has worked out for Robert Kubica in 3rd place. And did you see on the graphic just there, I believe he had the 3rd or 4th fastest race lap of the Grand Prix, so just underlining the progress that both he and the BMW Sauber team have made. Absolutely remarkable.
What Michael should do, in my view, is have a farewell year if he's ready to hang up his boots and his helmet, because he could do that. He should have positioned himself, okay, I'll stick around at Ferrari, it'll be the transition year, we'll see how it goes, and have a sort of like Mario Andretti over in the States, whatever, a bit of a farewell tour. He could have positioned himself with no pressure whatsoever, and I still think he would have beaten Raikkonen, because he knows where all the green buttons are at Ferrari to get the job done. And then we could have celebrated the guy's brilliance. So I just hope he's not going to give us something late in the day when everybody's gone to print that just walks away from it. Strange.
Well, he'll still have 3 races to give us an Arrivederci Michael tour, and who knows, at the end of it he may well have his 8th World Championship, certainly finishing a career like his on a high. Remember, in the mid-1990s when he joined that team, so many other champions in his shoes would have just jumped straight into the pace-setting car of the time, which was the Williams. He didn't do that. He went to Ferrari along with the others, Ross Brawn, Jean Todt. He's turned this team around, and his achievement, I think, is very, very significant as a result of it. But certainly Alonso also says he doesn't want him to go because he loves racing against Michael Schumacher. To measure yourself against a great champion is a wonderful feeling. Hang on, is this
is
battle for position? Trulli and Heidfeld, 7th and 8th.
With Massa closing in on them very quickly now. 2 or 3 extra points for Ferrari would go down very well in their fight against Renault in the Constructors' Championship. And at the moment, 7th and 8th are just on the end of the nose of Massa's Ferrari, and the BMW with tremendous straight line speed there. But Jarno Trulli with the line into the corner. Massa must be right behind them now.
Yep, there he is. The winner in Istanbul. Right on the tail of Nick Heidfeld in the BMW, who has been overshadowed here this afternoon by his young teammate Robert Kubica. Nevertheless, it looks like 3rd and 8th, 2 more points scoring finishes for BMW. Back on board with Massa. 2 laps to go then in the Italian Grand Prix, and we've got more from Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, just a quick update on Jenson Button's race. He's just down on power. That's been the whole story. Look at his top line speeds. The most he's been doing across the start-finish line has been 318, 319 kilometers per hour. And the top guys, Kubica included, have been doing 324s. So just a lack of grunt from that Honda engine has just stymied Button today.
Well, just to put that in miles an hour for you, 320 kilometers an hour is about 190 miles an hour. So fast enough, but not fast enough to race against BMW and the rest. That's the top 8 at the moment then, with Michael Schumacher comfortably ahead of Kimi Raikkonen now, who I think will be very pleased with his weekend's work. 3rd pole position of the season and 3rd in the last 4 races, I think, for Raikkonen, underlining that McLaren are making progress as well. And I imagine, although he's probably utterly dejected at the moment, Fernando Alonso, sitting in the motorhome, will take some as this championship comes to an end, and that can only be good news for him for next year.
Into the last lap then for Michael Schumacher. Still going to a lot of trouble to avoid the oily patch from Fernando Alonso's Renault blow-up. Doesn't really need to anymore. I think that will be cleaned up quite a lot now, but there's no point taking a risk. He's got a 7.6-second lead. And this lot are still around the other side of the circuit. They haven't started the last lap, and unless you're lapped, then of course you will complete the lap. And that'll go all the way down to 10th place. Webber's 10th at the moment, the last unlapped runner.
Kubica, 1 lap away from his first Formula One podium, 20 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen. But what a day for him, and what a day for Michael Schumacher. Here is this battle. Trulli, Heidfeld, Massa. Massa at the moment, Ferrari driver, not in a points-paying position, so he will be very keen to rectify that in the final 3.5 miles of this Grand Prix. He's got 10 more corners in which to do it. But here comes Michael Schumacher. Listen to the crowd. He came here, the man at the centre of attention. All the talk about his retirement. He said, I don't want any distractions. I just want to race on Sunday and then we'll talk. And now we will talk, because Michael Schumacher wins the Italian Grand Prix. His 5th victory at Monza. Jean Todt doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. Across the line goes Kimi Raikkonen in 2nd place. That is Schumacher's 90th career victory. An unbelievable milestone on a historic day here, and a historic day also for Robert Kubica, waiting for him to come across the line. The young Polish driver. It's been an immaculate performance by Schumacher, but Kubica has crossed the line now. He has his podium, and I'm going to ask you for your driver of the day, but I'd like to volunteer the name of Robert Kubica.
Yeah, well, fine. It's got to be Michael Schumacher, surely. Michael Schumacher has to be the driver of the day today in terms of everything he's done and the pressure he would have been under through the Grand Prix weekend. His teammate was nowhere near him in terms of pace, and I think he's done a pretty spectacular job today. Kubica, though, very strong drive. You're absolutely right to mention that, James.
And a very emotional-looking Jean Todt. As Schumacher crosses the line, the BMW team are ecstatic, quite understandably. And remember that World Championship leader Fernando Alonso picking up no points here as we take a look at the replay of Kubica crossing the line. Alonso picks up nothing, so the championship now is down to just 2 points in Alonso's favour. It was 12 points an hour and a half ago. Schumacher wins, Raikkonen is 2nd, Kubica is 3rd. Giancarlo Fisichella makes a one-stop strategy work for him in 4th place. 5th is Jenson Button, having been beaten then by Fisichella and been in front of him for most of the race. 6th is Barrichello in the Honda. 7th, and picking up 2 points on an otherwise difficult weekend for them, is Trulli. There's a grim sight for Alonso fans. His car suspended in midair, powerless and impotent, as the Tifosi celebrate another historic victory for Schumacher. Picking up the final World Championship point then was Nick Heidfeld in 8th place.
Coulthard came home 12th for Red Bull. Yeah, just about as the conrods were coming out of the side of the Renault engine, the crowd in the main grandstand here were reacting to the white smoke and on their feet cheering because Alonso was out of the Grand Prix. I don't think that's unsporting. I think it's just that they're so passionate about their Ferrari team.
It's the way they are. It's the way they are. They love their racing here. We've seen a good race, not without its controversies this weekend. We'll be talking about this weekend, I think, for quite some time to come. But it's given Schumacher the springboard he was looking for to go out on a high, if that indeed is what he wants to do. I don't know if he's going to stand up and grab a microphone and talk to the crowd, or quite what he's going to do. But there is the top finishing order. Webber picking up 10th place. A nice finish for Williams. No points, though, yet again.
I think they need the status quo sound system if he's going to make himself heard above that low. It'll be 20 or 30,000 of them down there on the grid. It's the best podium of the year by a country mile, where the drivers come out into the middle of the racetrack. And really a carnival atmosphere, gladiatorial and very exciting. Must be, I never stood on that particular podium. It must be wonderful up there, especially for Michael Schumacher today as the Ferrari driver. We just wait with bated breath to see what else he's got to tell us.
There is the telltale number. 108 points Alonso, 106 Michael Schumacher. Luca de Montezemolo looks like he's trying to get himself into Parc Ferme. He's done it. President of Fiat, president of Ferrari, the parent company. The architect, really, of the rebirth of Ferrari. Getting Schumacher, though, was the real clincher for him. A sporting congratulation from the man set to replace him, Kimi Raikkonen. There are a lot of happy people down there in Parc Ferme. Where's Schumacher off to? Interesting looking ear defenders there for Schumacher. It's a new development. Straight to the mechanics, though. And the test driver, Luca Badoer, there. A lot of work behind the scenes. And Ferrari take the lead in the Constructors' Championship by 3 points over Renault. So it really has been a perfect day as far as they're concerned. There is Montezemolo hugging Schumacher. He normally doesn't stick around because he feels he brings them bad luck, but here today, he did not bring them bad luck.
Do I sense that de Montezemolo is keener to hug Michael than Michael is de Montezemolo there?
Yes, you do.
Also.
Yes, a lot of stories in the background about relations between Schumacher and the team. Did he want to arrive at this moment? Did he want to go alongside Kimi Raikkonen? A very emotional moment there between Schumacher and Todd. Fernando Alonso is with Louise Goodman.
Fernando, with Schumacher taking that win, just 2 points separating the championship. Now, do you feel the momentum is slipping away from you?
Not at all. I think 1% of the people here will be happy today. The people that yesterday decided the race. And, you know, I think from that, we will work on. In normal circumstances, we were quicker in Hungary. We were quick in front of him in Turkey. I think we should win the race here with the Michelin tires we bring. So, you know, the last 3 races, I felt favorite one for the championship. So this will not change too much, I think, the result at the end.
Just tell me about the moment, how you felt when that engine failed, particularly in front of this Tifosi here.
Well, I think, you know, I had to push the engine more than normal to recover from 10th place, unfortunately, and these things happen. It happened not in the best place, but as I said, I think many people will be happy today, so I hope they sleep well.
Thanks, Fernando.
Sheer defiance has kept him at the top of the Drivers' World Championship this far, and now he's going to have to dig very, very deep indeed in the final 3 Grand Prix. It'll take more than defiance to keep him there.
I think when he sees the race over, he'll review his concept that he was going to win it. He never had the pace, and he confirmed that he was pushing his engine extra hard to come through the pack. Yes, he was in dirty air, had traffic, but even in clear air, he didn't have the pace. Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen were out front in a league of their own all afternoon. And I think the best Fernando was ever going to get wherever he started on the grid was P3. But he's saying, look, I had to stress my engine to make up for the deficit, the penalty on the grid.
That was Robert Kubica you saw walking through. He will be emerging onto the podium shortly. I'm sure many people's outstanding performer of the day, but you can tell from the emotion of Schumacher and Jean Todt and Schumacher's wife Carina, who was there, just what a big day this is for him. He's put all that talk of his retirement to the back of his mind. His mind management has been top class this weekend. Wasn't able to get the pole position. Kimi Raikkonen took that away from him by the slenderest of margins, but he delivered what really mattered, and that was the 10 World Championship points. And with Alonso scoring nothing, it has been a huge day in the career of Michael Schumacher. Massive crowd here at Monza. Their interest in Formula One and Ferrari undimmed by the years. Excited at the prospect of another championship coming to Maranello.
So is he going to say, do we think he's going to say something now when he goes into the normal press conference, televised press conference immediately after the podium procedure? Or do we think it's going to be in the press conference after that? Or does he make a separate statement after the whole lot's finished? He'll never be able to say anything in the pit lane because nobody will hear it over this lot.
Out onto the podium they come then. And just listen to the crowd. Raikkonen and Kubica. Everybody making their way down there. No sign of Schumacher at the moment. Obviously having a private moment. There he is. Up on the podium goes Michael Schumacher. We await to hear official word of what's going to happen. We're being told that Schumacher has told the team over the radio on the slowing down lap that he is going to retire from Formula One. And let's just look at his expression. It's now official apparently. A press release is going out as we speak. Schumacher is retiring from Formula One.
Fully deserved third place there by Kubica for BMW. Best of the rest, though, after Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher this afternoon. I've got a feeling we're going to have a Kleenex moment a little bit later on in terms of the emotions that are going to come out of Michael Schumacher and his team. The perfect end. It's official. He's out of here. And well, that's exactly how he would have hoped he would be at this end of the day. 10 points. Comfortable victory. Fernando Alonso, no points.
Up on the podium, Jean Todt, as he has been so many times in Schumacher's 90 career victories, 71 of them for the Ferrari team. And Kimi Raikkonen, what a great drive he put in this weekend. Pole position and a very strong run. A challenge to Schumacher, ending up in second place. We'll find out later that he is the replacement for Michael Schumacher at Ferrari. They'll be swapping. And he is the new face of Ferrari as Jean Todt congratulates him. And let's not forget this man. By far the tallest man on the podium, Robert Kubica. Heroic moment for him.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? He's taller than Raikkonen, despite being a step lower, and nearly as tall as Michael. That's a great podium. They should be at all the races. That's pretty much the story, isn't it? If you added in Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne too.
They don't seem particularly interested in anybody else. They're only interested in themselves. Jean Todt and Michael Schumacher. Statistically, the greatest Formula One career in history is coming to an end. Will it culminate in an 8th World Championship? Well, we've got 3 races to go in which we'll find out. But make no mistake, this is the beginning of the long goodbye.
official press release. There it is. Look at the top line. Michael Schumacher will retire from race driving at the end of the 2006 World Championship. So it's the news that every Ferrari fan and every Michael Schumacher fan did not want to hear. It's got a load of sort of PR, nice stuff about how he loves Ferrari. And look, even his engineer Chris Dyer hasn't seen this. Chris, well, he is retiring. What's your view?
Well, obviously it's you know, it's been a fantastic time with him, and we'll be disappointed, but it's his decision, and you know, hopefully we can finish the job this year and send him out in the perfect way.
Okay, well, have a good one. Just the last thing, Steve, on here, which is interesting. No mention of Kimi Räikkönen, by the way, but the last line here, we will announce at the end of the year a definition of Michael's new role. So it looks like Michael will still have a role with Ferrari into the future.
grande festa con il cuore rosso Ferrari che ha illuminato il podio di questo Gran Premio di Prix. È una grande emozione commentare queste immagini, osservare la vostra festa, la festa della grande Ferrari, degli appassionati.
Congratulations to the three podium finishers at the Vodafone Italian Grand Prix. Third for BMW Sauber, Robert Kubica. Second for Team McLaren Mercedes, Kimi Räikkönen. And winning Ferrari's 17th race here at Monza and winning the Italian Grand Prix for the 5th time, Michael Schumacher for Scuderia Ferrari Marlboro. Michael, an amazing day, a great start alongside Nick Heidfeld there, taking second place early on, and an emotional scene there on the podium.
Yeah, it's been a very special day, and to finish it in this style as we have been doing today, looking at the championship as well, but much more at what's going to happen somehow in future. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion for a lot of time what concerns my future and so on, and I think all the fans, all the motorsport interested people, they have a right to be explained what's going to happen. I'm sorry it may took longer than some of you wanted, but you have to set a moment and you have to find the right moment, and we feel this is the right moment. To make it short in a way, this is going to be my last Monza race I'm going to do. At the end of this year, I've decided together with the team that I'm going to retire from racing. It has been an exceptional, really exceptional time, what motorsport in more than 30 years has given to me. I really loved every single moment of the good and the bad ones. Those ones make life so special. Particular, I should thank my family, starting with obviously my dad, my passed away mum, and obviously my wife and my kids, who at all time supported at what I was doing. And without their support, without their strengths to survive in this business, in this sport, and to perform, I think it would have been impossible. And I can't be thankful enough, obviously, to my family, but as well to all my mates at the Benetton time, and obviously, especially at the Ferrari days, when I've made so many friends. I have so many great guys in that team, and it has been a really tough decision to decide to not work together at this level with all my friends and my engineers and everybody. I mean, they're just so great. And but one day, the day has to come, and I felt at a point that this is the moment. As well as in terms of timing the decision, I thought that it was fair to find that moment that Felipe has a chance to decide his future, because I think he's a very great guy. He has been doing a very good job to the team, very supportive, really great teammate, and there was a moment for him to decide for his future, and there was no point for me to take my decision any later than his decision had to be taken. And this was the conclusion as well of, in a way, my future replacement. It's a driver, at some stage the team will tell, but I always was pleased, and I know a long time ago, to hear that he was the person. And now I just like to concentrate on these last 3 wins and make it or finish it in style, and hopefully with the championship. We've done a big step today for that, and I really look forward. And I want to thank everybody who has been on my way or supporting me at all stages. There have been a lot of people. Thank you very much.
I'm sure everyone in Formula One wishes you well in that decision, Michael. Now, just looking back to this great win today, in the early stages behind Kimi, of course, what were your thoughts at that point?
Well, I was hoping that he was stopping a little bit earlier than we would do, and so it happened. And the nature of this track is if you stop earlier, you obviously lose out because you run heavy against the car who's light. And that was enough to get by.
Just enough, but you did get by there. And thereafter, it looked to be a race that you were in control. A slight moment there with Scott Speed, I think, going into the first chicane on lap 31, lost a little bit of time there, but otherwise relatively trouble-free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations again in a race in which Ferrari have taken the lead in the Constructors' Championship. Kimi, turning to you, a great start and a pressure, of course, from Michael in the early stages of the race.
Yeah, the start worked very well. I was a little bit concerned about our starting because the previous starts hasn't been exactly good, but the guys did an excellent job to fixing the start system, and everything worked well. So I had a good start, and I was just trying to go as fast as I could before the first pit stop, because I was thinking that they might stop a little bit later. So if I can pull any cap, we have any chance to try to fight for win. But like it turned out, we were not quick enough today, but it was quite easy second. So in the end, I just slowed down and bring the car home and get the second place, and unfortunately that was maximum what we could have had today, but it is still a good weekend, and it's a good way.
Congratulations to you. And turning to Robert, on the podium, third place in your third Grand Prix, a fantastic drive, a lot of fuel in the car, and unbelievably quick off the line with your teammate Nick Heidfeld.
Yeah, I mean, really surprised to finish third. We know that we had good tires for this time for the race, not only for qualifying, as this happened in Istanbul. So we were concerning about qualifying, but when we saw that we can be competitive also in qualifying and go easy into quali-3, I knew that we have the quite good consistent car for the race, and that's happened. Good start. Unfortunately, I locked for front wheels in the first corner, so I have flat spot, and first stint was really difficult, a lot of vibration. Then we changed the tires, and it was always tough race because I have to fight with Felipe and Alonso, and also, you know, lapping guy doesn't help me because I was the first one of the group who lapped them, and I lost always 1 second, and then we just came in out of the second pit stop with Fernando, just side by side, and anyway, he blew up engine, and it was really risky because there was oil. Felipe went through, and I think he has puncture or something, and then the end of the race was quite easy for me, just to bring the car home, and first podium in my life in Formula 1.
Fantastic result. Well done again.
Thank you.
Michael, turning back to the remaining 3 races, you've told us about your future. Tell us about your mindset now as you look ahead to those 3 closing races in the championship. Now only 2 points behind Fernando Alonso.
I think it is very easy. What is my mindset? I mean, that is... it's difficult to say. It's more focused than ever because I have always been focused on only one thing once I'm in the car, and so is it now. It's a championship which started difficult in the beginning, but we returned to it after another difficulty mid-season, and now we're at 2 points behind with 3 races to go. So if you go back at Canada, nobody would have thought we could be ever in that position. Now we are, due to some luck, but I mean, if you look at the retirements over the year, it's now equal in a way, and there we are. So 100% focus for the constructor and the Drivers' Championship.
Thank you very much. Now if we could have some words from you in your own language.